If you go to science websites, you can buy fetal pigs and goat eyeballs and stuff like that for side effects, for side special effects. I have dissected a lot of goat eyeballs in my day for somebody's movie. So on my website, I start my bio with, as long as I can remember, I've wanted to make movies. And I start it with that because it's true. One, I think my first memory where I was like, yes, this is the thing I'm going to do, I was probably like 10. But even before that, I was always, my dad had one of the VHS tape camcorders when I was a kid. And I used to always he used to try to get me to act, and I hated that. I always wanted to be like, you act, I'll watch the camera and see if you're doing it right kind of situation. So even before I was aware of direction as a career, I wanted to be a director. There have been a lot of things that have discouraged me from being a filmmaker over the years. My mom was dead set on me becoming a doctor. My grandmother was dead set on me, doing this. My teachers in high school, I tried to apply for only fine arts colleges when I was leaving high school, and I had a teacher, my guidance counselor was like, no, impossible. You will not only apply to art schools. How are you going to get a job if you only apply to art schools? And even when I graduated school, they're like, oh, you're not going to get a job because you went to film school. But I did get a job, and I did go ahead, and I think that was honestly one of the mistakes I made, is getting a job, because I think I felt so bound and determined to prove that I could get a job and to prove that I could get ahead and I could make a living with this background, that I got caught up in that race instead of proving that I was going to make a movie. Especially when you're going into film school and you have a background like I do, which is you are a female, you're a woman who comes from a diverse background, and you come from a lower middle class family from an industrial town. You already kind of have those cards stacked against you, the typical film boy is a boy, clearly from that intro. Not as much anymore, which is exciting, but when I especially was going into school, was always the kid who wanted to be Tarantino. And then as I was finishing, it was the kid who wanted to be Wes Anderson fighting the kid who wanted to be Tarantino. And there's so much more than that, and by paying attention to them and what their wants are, you get so caught up in this rat race that has nothing to do with who you are and what you want to create.
You can't do it. No.
I never had a specific yen to make horror movies. It sort of fell into my lap. I started working with a local production company on a film. They were making a documentary about horror in New England. And then what happened was a open call went out for short horror movies under 2 minutes. And they wanted to make one, and they asked me if I had an idea, and I had 10. So then I said, sure, here are all my ideas. Which one do you want to do? Can I direct? And they said, yes, of course. And that's how I started making horror movies. It just happened, and I love it. I love it so much.
I'll be good, I promise. I'll learn.
I made you. I'll do what I want.
Dr. Jupiter made me.
I think one of my favorite projects has been the one that it's always going to be the last one I worked on, right? And I think right now I'm really, really excited about The First Condition, which was the project that you PA'd on, because I'm starting to get these cuts back from my editor, who's also my cinematographer, Sam, and they're exactly what I pictured. And that I'm really excited about that, because normally when you get your first rough cut of a film back, you're like, this is trash, I'm a loser, and it's time to go lay in my bed for 3 weeks and listen to Cat Stevens on repeat. And you're just like, it's over, this is it, I'm done. And I got my first cut back from Sam, and I'm like, this is gorgeous, A. It's not the style I wanted, can we rework it? he turned it around and it gave me back in the style that I had wanted, which is similar to La Jetée, so it's still frame black and white, and it's perfect.
Vivimos en las sombras de la sociedad. Nos llamaron criminales, nos llamaron monstruos. Nos dijeron que volviéramos a donde veníamos. Entonces decidimos que seríamos criminales, seríamos monstruos. Pero solo volviéramos a donde venimos, una vez que supieran que éramos incluso bestias más grandes que ellos.
I can still see the room for tweaks, but you usually go through like 5 or 6 edits before you're like, okay, I am starting to see that I made an okay movie and I don't need to quit the film business and hide under a rock.
Pero las cosas nunca salen según lo planeado, ¿verdad?
So I built in Ishtar, I built a lot of costumes in that, and they look like bent metal, but they're actually styrofoam that's cut and shaped and steamed into shape and spray painted. And I think it's just not being afraid to try it and like leaving yourself the room that if you totally mess it up, you can get somebody else to do it. You know, like on my set for First Condition, you met Jordan, and he's an amazing, amazing special effects person. And it's because he's done it for so long and he's done so much work on it and he practices and tries new things. And, you know, I do pay him to work on my pieces, but it's worth it for stuff like the monster head in First Condition. He spent so much time on that. And if I had done that on top of the production and direction work I was doing, like, I would have never gotten it done. And being able to get him to do it so that it could be that detailed was really like, it's a gift when you can get somebody like that to work on it for you. One of the best tips I got is one of my films, and you can even like, as I'm saying this, pause the footage and like circle it if you want, is in my film, Cleaning House. There's a part where they're hitting people with hammers and blood splashes up from behind the table, and the window, we were shooting that during the day, and the window is blacked out with garbage bags, and every time I watch that I can see the garbage bag lines in the window and it drives me absolutely spare. And I said that to somebody and they're like, trust me, in that scene nobody is looking at the window being like, where's the garbage bags? They're like, you see that because you've watched this 50 million times, and sometimes you just have to let that stuff go. For special effects and low budget horror, it can get very tricky. And a lot of it's like experimentation, you know, and not being squeamish. You know, I've used chocolate cake batter for like gore before. I've used like red velvet cake batter. I've used raspberry sauce. The usual like corn syrup and red dye. Fun fact, if you use clear Dawn fluid and red dye, it wipes up and doesn't stain. For the longest time, I hated saying action because I felt like I was playing at something, right? I felt like I was full of it. And, you know, I would say like, okay, go, or ready, we're rolling, you know, and it took me a long time to realize that people expect that of you, you know. Don't yell at people, don't scream at them, don't be mean to them. But, you know, just saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan. The thing is, on set, when you're the director, you're the leader of the team. You're, you know, the alpha of the team, and you are leading the way through this project to them. So these people, even if they're fooling around, even if they're goofing off, they should be, and it gets easier as you work with professionals, I will say that. They're looking to you for the direction that you're all going to go in together. You're the point of the triangle. The thing that helps is usually I'm writing the script, I'm directing, so I'm in the mindset of the character already. I know what they're feeling, I know what their emotions are. What's tricky is sometimes the character, the actor doesn't have the same experience as you and the character. So you have to figure out how to put it to them, you know, okay, maybe this hasn't happened to you, but has this? How did you feel in that moment? How did you feel about this? How did you feel when this happened to you? You know, to figure out the emotion that they need to get to. And I think sometimes an actor will disagree with you, and that's fine. I think that's the important thing that too many people don't do that they should do, is listening to your actors and understanding that direction isn't just telling them what to do, it's a collaboration between both of you. Boston is a great place to start out, I think, but I think if you really want to get into working in film, you have to move to New York or LA at some point, if only to start making those connections. And that's definitely not as true anymore. There's definitely a bigger Boston scene happening now, especially with films coming in the area because of our tax breaks. But like when I first started, that wasn't a thing that was happening, you know? And I think had I moved to LA, then I might be further along than I am now in making a movie, or I might be, have found something else altogether. But I think there were 7 years there that I missed out on in advancing. For getting into the horror scene in Boston, I think it's a very similar thing. The horror scene in general, it's a very guarded society. People are very, people have a tendency to really everybody wants to get ahead, and people don't realize that if you build each other up, you can get ahead together. And I think that's a big part of the problem that I've seen in horror especially, is that you have all these people who have the same interests and the same passions and the same like 10, 20 favorite movies and enjoy the same things, but they're all, you know, trying to push everybody out of their way when they could be trying to push each other up, and that's how you get ahead. I think that's one of the really key things that people forget, is that when one of us rises up, the rest of us rise up.